Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to our Offworld Trading Company stream. The Stardock has been streaming for, I think, 8 hours now.
Sounds like it, yeah.
And the time zones work, which doesn't happen very often for us, but we're in Australia and we're streaming in our morning, which is continuing on from the American night streams.
Works out very nicely that we have that there are people on this side of the world as well that can kind of carry on in an appropriate time zone. It's a little bit chilly, but we're very awake and ready to go.
Yeah, I'm disappointed because I actually am wearing my Offworld Trading Company shirt. I thought it would be cool to be thematic and embrace it, but it was kind of too cold to actually wear it without a jacket. Furthermore, like, it's a really cool shirt, but the Offworld Trading Company logo is on the back.
Right.
And then the front is like that really nice star sort of artwork. So I would have had to like wear it backwards, and that probably would have made it look funny. But it's okay. We're repping the GG hoodies today, and we're gonna get started. So we have a bunch of replays to cast. We downloaded like 15 replays, so we should have enough to go through. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. Now we've played a fair bit of Ashes, but of Offworld rather, but not for a while. Like, we had sort of a last minute cram session where we were like, all right, what does this faction do? What does this faction do? What's this map? So we're a little bit rusty, I suppose. We certainly won't have the finesse analysis and insight that you may expect from a developer stream, but technically we're not developers, not for Offworld. Man, I'm so in the habit of just saying Ashes, because that's what I work on. So if I keep referring to Offworld as Ashes, I apologize in advance.
So yeah, we're just jumping in on the bandwagon because we certainly appreciate this game. It is 10 out of 10 PogChamp, and if we don't get much of a chance to play it, but we're getting started. Let's see if we have, it looks like we are people founding. Where are they?
Well, they got to wait for the debt to go down.
Oh yeah, 44, minus 44, that's fine. Okay, what are we thinking here? There's like a lot of water around this area. We have access to expansive, nomadic.
I guess we haven't even talked about like how we're going to structure the stream. Yeah. So are we going to like try and shoutcast, or are we going to try and give like new player guides?
I guess a combination of the two is the general gentleman standard. We can do fun, informative shoutcasts while still introing for new players, I think. So kind of a combination of both. It's a friendly shoutcast. Of course, you do have 4 options in terms of who you're spawning in as for possible HQ types. We see here that Dermas, our red player, has gone for the nomadic, which is probably the most crazy out of control one because he gets 2 HQs as opposed to just the 1.
Yeah, and his opponent, Ich bin ein Konto, has gone for the same thing. So I know a little bit of German. That's I am a Konto. I'm guessing is some kind of vulgar word.
Oh no!
I can only assume, but we'll have to get confirmation about what that actually means. So yeah, Nomad's interesting because they get double HQs. So normally you only get 1 HQ. You know, it's a headquarters. It's not a important building. It's a headquarters. But with Nomad, they can place 2 of them down, and so that gives them access to different types of resources that are spread out and hard to get. So in this situation, we see that one of the Nomad HQs is right next to that high aluminum,
and the other one's doing the silicon, which is also a very important resource for the nomadic. Dermas here also. As we see here, that's a high and a medium, or do you get double high from that? There was a high and a medium on the top side, and the second one is going to be covering water and aluminium. Very nice, Australians.
All right, this is going to be an issue.
It's going to be a big problem.
As members of the Commonwealth, we are supposed to say aluminium, and I don't like that. It's just too many syllables, man. Aluminum's easier.
But I'm gonna stick to aluminium because I'm
all right.
Yeah, I'm proud in what I say. You can't stop me. I am unstoppable. We're going to tier 2, which does mean additional claims. You can access a few more resources, and our first little 1-2 into the black market has been started as well.
Yeah, so that was the power surge. So black market powers are the way that you can interact more directly with your opponent. You can use a range of sabotage powers to make their life a little bit harder. So this power surge, as you can see, it has frozen these structures. So they're unable to do anything until that time's off. And that's going to be limiting his income. It'll prevent him from, getting those really valuable resources, the oxygen and the fuel. And as you can see, his opponent actually was able to tech up because he's got the electrolysis reactors himself. And so what it means is that when they're both competing to sell the same resources, the supply and demand, the price of it goes down. So now that Ishbin is actually selling off all those resources, by the time his opponent Dermas is, once he actually gets these back online, his prices won't be as high when he sells them off. So that's a really good move there. It does cost you a fair bit though for the black market powers. So you have to be really confident that it's going to actually have a substantial impact. Otherwise, it's just a waste of money.
Yeah, I think economically that makes a lot of sense that he decided to go for that because you're going to make more than the 3.5k. Of course, the black market power is quite cheap early on, and that he ramp up in price as they continue to be used. And we have our first auction as well. A nice friendly bidding war that pauses the hostilities for a bit.
Yeah, I have a friend that jokingly refers to Offworld Trading Company as Auction Simulator. Which I think sounds pretty exciting. Like, dude, I want to play Auction Simulator, but both of our players are having the geothermal, so we actually won that in the end. I
think it was Dermas, wasn't it? Or
I can actually change.
Was it won it?
Was
maybe that tile, or
maybe that was that
did you
tile.
Flip to the tile? Maybe it was. So
yeah, I thought it was the one next to it. I guess I was wrong, but yeah. So they both had a geothermal power, so that's really important because power gives you. I mean, power is one of the resources, but it's one of the more important resources because you need power to power your base. And if you don't do that, you have to borrow money to pay for it. And that gets really expensive really early on. Yeah, as you can see, the price for it is about 114. So having geothermal power, it's the most space efficient in terms of the power. It only occupies one claim, and yet it grants you 2 power, whereas the solar and the wind turbines, you need multiple claims, but they stack a little bit better because they have the adjacency bonus.
And also vary in kind of power production depending on where they're placed, whereas the geothermal is obviously very consistent. If they're on the geothermal tile, it puts you in a better spot. So.
Yeah, and they also cost different resources, which is important. So the solar panel costs a lot of silicon, the wind turbine's carbon, and now this actually varies depending on what faction or what HQ you're playing. In this case, it's costing silicon because they're Nomad, but generally it's costing steel, which is actually quite a hard resource to acquire because it's also what you use to tech up. So the resources vary depending on, or the importance of the resources rather. They vary on which HQ you're playing, and you choose which HQ you play depending on what map you play because there's randomized layout of resources. So every single time a game starts, we didn't really go over this game because we were introing, but every time a game starts, you got to look at the map and go like, okay, what do we have? What don't we have? What's expensive? What's cheap? And then you got to try and think about like the intelligent placement, not only of which HQ, but also where you put it. So the early game is frantic. It is really, you have a lot to think about. Also, like black market powers will affect what type of HQ you go for because some of them interact more harshly with certain HQs.
As you can tell, the early game is pretty intense.
Yeah.
As you can probably see the how much oxygen and fuel actually tanked from it's been selling off all of his before the electrolysis came back online, and one of them actually ended up getting sold off by Dermas. Sold one of them off and replaced it with the farm. On double farm at the moment, though the price of food is tanking a little bit. Okay, cold fusion is the current bidding war that's going on.
So that one's quite a nice upgrade. Buildings are powered with water rather than power. That being said, currently though, power is actually really cheap.
Yeah. So
it won't be useful now. Now it may be useful later on because as more and more water is consumed, the price of that will vary. So the prices are not by any means fixed. It can be a common mistake that players make, because new players, is that they see a low or a high price and they go for it, but they don't think about, well, how is that going to change over time. So there was another power surge that went through, and we can see now there's actually a goon squad on the greenhouse farm. So if his opponent uses another power, such as the power surge, that will not only be deflected, but he'll also be able to reuse it back on his opponent. And it's an important location because it's actually not only for the farms, but also it's connecting these waters. And with the power surge in particular, the power surge, you click it on the end and it goes through a line. It's similar to EMP, but EMP works differently because EMP is a circular radius.
Rather than a chain.
Yeah, a
I guess you
chain,
could put
yeah.
it. So also had our first underground nuke. Nice to see big usage of the black market powers this game. Was onto that water.
Yeah.
There. So that's now been taken down to a low. So you have different you have mediums and you have highs determined by the number of little squidgy resource nodes on each point. There's the mediums and lows there. So took one of them down. Underground nuke does drop them 2 levels. So I mean, if you have a high, it drops it down to a low, which means less water income for Spin, which is good because he's on triple farm at the moment, so really kind of needing that water is tanking a bit.
Yeah, you can see his water consumption's in negative. Well, okay, so there was a mutiny that was deployed onto the patent lab, but it was intercepted by a goon squad. So now Dermas is going to have access to... Yeah, here we go. This is his vision. So he's going to have the mutiny available. Now, where does he use it? Is there anywhere to actually deploy it? I mean, the geothermal... Well, actually...
Yeah, his power's really cheap. It's not really worth it at the moment.
It's sort of the default is like power. I guess there's actually a patent lab here, isn't there? Yeah, and that's mutinied.
Very nice.
So he was previously getting slant drilling.
Previously getting carbon scrub. Oh, yeah. You mean, yes. Previously, Ishbin was getting slant drilling. Is that what you mean? Or did that just start getting upgraded?
Well, it's saying slant drilling, so I suppose Dermas is getting that now.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Maybe before he was getting...
So Dermas is the one on his own patent lab has been going for carbon scrubbing for a while, and I'm guessing just started. Just started slant drilling as soon as he mutinied. Of course, mutiny lasts X amount of time, which is enough to get a patent. Enough to get one of the long patents. So that's going to be mutiny unless it gets re-mutinied back. Mutiny for mutiny.
It's a vicious cycle.
It is a vicious cycle, and it certainly can happen. So we'll see if Ishbin decides to invest in that in order to slow Dermas's role in getting additional patents.
I think he mutinied it.
I think he mutinied it back again. Yes? No?
I don't know. I heard a mutiny be used.
Yeah.
Perhaps you should explain what patents actually are.
Patents. Oh, I would love to explain what patents are. So it's essentially kind of high-tech upgrades that you can get that provide a variety of benefits, and they're kind of map dependent and game dependent and HQ dependent. Again, the ones you go for will change depending on where you go for. So as you can see here, there's a couple of good examples. So carbon scrubbing's just been done by Dermas. So carbon scrubbing. So buildings which need carbon need carbon are powered by carbon. They can collect it from the atmosphere, which is cool. So these cost chemicals. The other resources to upgrade, and chemicals can be a fairly expensive resource. So it's not cheap to go for these upgrades, but certainly can be beneficial. Yeah,
it's about 7,000 with the current prices. Yeah, these are really good. Some of the upgrades, like teleportation, is super good. That being said, the way that this matchup has actually gone, there's hardly any ships because they're both playing Nomad.
Yeah.
So they have like HQs all over the map, so they're able to not have to ship their resources. They can just automatically, have their HQs next to it. So, but normally what'll happen is you'll have resources and structures placed all over the map, and then you have to ship those. So not only does it take time that you're not actually getting that constant flow, but also then you're paying for fuel because those ships have to get fueled by something. So by getting teleportation, not only is it more efficient just by the instantaneous transfer, but also then you're not paying for fuel. So that's normally the most common one, or like the one that's rushed the first. But just the way that this crazy double Nomad game has gone, it's just not necessary, not important right now.
And the fact there's no filthy pirates as well kind of helps out to shoot down your plane, so that's less of a problem. As you can see, patents also go up for auction. So instead of having to research those, you can just purchase them from your opponent. And 12 is not very much for water engine. It's pretty cost efficient.
Yeah. So that one, I believe it's I can actually just look at it here. It's ships and offworld markets are powered with water. That's instead of fuel.
It's cheaper, which it is at the moment.
Yeah, so that was a good buy, actually.
That was a good buy, yeah.
Especially, because the water is pretty plentiful for both of our players. They have plenty of water between them, so I'm surprised he didn't bid more than that. But so there's a lot going on in this game. There's a lot of resources to think about. There's a lot of different types of structures. Pleasure domes give you money. Off-world markets are the ultimate late game revenue stream. You got to think about how can you not only harass your opponent in terms of the black market powers, we also got to think about how can I try and leverage the market prices. So, competing with them for certain resources, trying to invest in a resource that that they're going to spend lots of. So for example, if they get an optimization center and a patent lab, all the upgrades from those two structures, they cost chemicals. And so then if you're preemptively getting a source of chemicals, then you're going to be able to sell those for quite a good profit. We can see here Dermas has got double chemicals, so that's going to be giving him some pretty decent income.
Dermas also just grabbed virtual reality, which is going to increase the income from his pleasure domes, two of which we see in the colony here. So this is where all the Humies live. They have their little cubicle dwelling compartment places, and depending on kind of what comes up here, will determine this colony uses different resources, and that'll help determine the prices outside of how the players interact with. The economy, the colony will have a big effect. As you can see here, thank you very much to Callum. Will be scrolling over. That's what the colony's using at the moment. So they're using a fair bit of power and water and food to keep people happy. And those big, shiny pleasure domes are producing income for our players.
Yeah. So we can see Dermas one has more because he got the virtual reality, didn't he? So that gives him, I think it's a 50% bonus, which doesn't account for the 10. It's because there's also the efficiency of the pleasure domes depends on what they're surrounded by. So the more modular habitats that are around them, the better it is. So there's a bit of placement that you got to think about when you're putting those pleasure domes down. So this is power backup. Now that, I believe, is only useful for solar. So perhaps one of our players has solar.
I haven't seen it as a possibility. I suppose we should check on the secondary HQs, given they're Nomad.
Oh yeah,
your secondary ones, they don't get a lot of love. A lot of the time they're just placed down early for Nomad to get all their resources, so you're going to put some on silicon and one on aluminum, as you can see from Ishbin. He's just gone for aluminum on the second one, and you kind of just play it like you have one HQ. Tends to be the way you do it.
Looks like the only power is geothermals and a single wind, but that doesn't benefit from the storage.
Wow, a lot of tech coming out now from Dermas. So it has the is shipping Offworld. It's the Offworld market. Also has the optimization center.
They actually both have a Offworld market now. Just a little bit faster on the trigger is Dermas. So they're protected by goon squads. But the way that it works is if you call down a black market power, the goon squad is depleted. So you can then use another black market power afterwards. But there's a bit of a race to, okay, well, do I build another goon squad quickly? Do I then counter mutiny him and try and get his down? There's also the hologram, which hides the off-world market because it's such a valuable structure to harass. You want to use the hologram to prevent that from being revealed. And so we see that Ishbin has done that. It's cloaked as something else, but it was revealed by the corporate spy. So Dermas, he knows what's up. He sees this one here. And so let's see how they respond.
Really good spy positioning, actually, in both of those spots, because it is the most likely locations that we see. We kind of see these off-world markets going down, whereas the other two spots, that's kind of water and
electrolysis.
Electrolysis, very nice, thank you, Callum. Reactors, you kind of want to leave them up, so unlikely that anything gets built in those directions. Okay, so Ishbane needs to go for one more buy of his own stock to make sure he doesn't get bought out here. He's playing a little bit tight. There we go. Okay, has secured 50% of his company, and that provides a nice little lockout bonus. So it's harder for Dermas to now buy him out. So
he actually has a hacker array. So the hacker array, you can use that to artificially change the price of things. So the resources fluctuate depending on supply and demand, who's selling and who's buying what. But with the hacker array, you can artificially do that. So if you have a whole bunch of, say, carbon, which is not worth much, selling it off isn't going to give you much money, you can change that so then the price of it goes up so you make a profit. Now we see a mutiny went on to the off-world market, so now this is currently getting income, unless it's been counter-mutinied. Original owner. No, so yeah, that's Dermas now has that.
Yeah, Dermas has
so he will get income from that, assuming that it doesn't get counter-mutinied.
So that was a pretty in-depth play. That was pretty intense because Dermas was threatening to buy out Ishbin. I mean, Ishbin had to go for to buy out parts of his own company buying shares, but that kind of tanked the amount of cash reserves that he had, and therefore didn't go for another goon squad onto the Offworld market, and it got mutinied by Dermas. So that was a pretty in-depth play. That was cool. I liked it.
Yeah, the goon squad ramps up in price so much that, like, a lot of the timing is important. So I believe whoever buys this next goon squad, their opponent is then going to have to spend 50k. And that's a huge difference. So the late game is, I don't quite know like what the best strats are and how you should play it exactly, but if you can make your opponent buy the expensive powers as they ramp up in price, then it's just can be quite nasty. So this still hasn't been counter mutinied. He's got 15 seconds until he launches that, and then he'll get a bunch of money from his opponent's Offworld market, which is not fun.
No, it's not going to be a good time, so we'll see if that actually goes through.
I don't know if I have the right player selected. Yeah, that was him. So $43,000 from that. There was another Offworld underground nuke. I don't know where that one went.
It was onto the silicon. So just nuked the silicon down to low.
It wasn't those two. It must have been someone else.
Really particularly important when both of our players have actually like their full tech. So silicon's a little bit less important. It's still an important resource for nomads, and it was kind of expensive, so it's kind of good to see.
Yeah, you'd think the water would be a bit more valuable. Now that being said, with underground nuke, you can use it sometimes to blow up the goon squads. I think it has to be on a tile that actually has resources though. Okay. But like, because sometimes what you'll see is you'll just see these kind of random black market powers used that they weren't going to do anything, but they just detonate goon squads.
Right.
Rather than spending $10,000 on a mutiny to blow up a goon squad, you can spend something a bit cheaper than that, like a power surge, for example, because each black market power scales separately depending on how much it's used.
So both of our players now with 2 Offworld markets. So the other 2 on there maybe on the side base for Ishbin, because I haven't seen
side base.
The side base, the backup base.
Okay, that's an Offworld market being built now, disguised as a pleasure dome. That's it.
Just as I see 2 and 2.
Yeah, you're right.
2 and 2 for both of our players.
There it is.
For Dermas as well. This is
So
up the top.
goon squad intercepted by.
So yeah, I think that was an underground nuke on.
Yeah, it must be in this because it says defended.
Yeah.
Defended happens when there's previously a black market usage there. So, I mean, it looks like there's a pretty big advantage here for Dermas. We can see his stock price is above. He's also got a bit of stock invested in his opponent's company, so that means it's easier for him to buy out his opponent. You can see the numbers there, 62% of the money that he needs to buy out his opponent, whereas about 13% for Dermas. So, I don't think we'll see much room for comeback in this situation.
No, it could be difficult. No crazy resource kind of hikes. Electronics still fairly expensive, as was food and oxygen for a while, though that's starting to come back down again. I think he's going on crazy spikes. Power's actually still pretty expensive for late game. So.
Yeah, so generally the food, oxygen, and fuel are the 3 most important resources in the late game, because those are the ones that you typically are shipping off. So it's important that there's a good investment of both food and the electrolysis to get both the oxygen and the fuel. Dermas is a little bit spread out. I mean, he's got a little bit of everything here. He's got electronics as well. He's got more food up here. They both have electronics, so they sort of have a little bit of everything. I guess they don't have the glass anymore. Chems went down, but it's pretty varied. But that's going to be the GG here anyway. The buyout is approaching. He needs... how do I see how much he needs? 450,000 to buy out his opponent. He has about 350,000 at the moment.
The black market is open for business.
Am I looking at the right player? Yeah.
So it's there. Yeah.
It says 100,000. Maybe that's including his resource prices.
Yeah.
So assuming that he sells them off, he'll be able to. There it is. GG.
Nice.
Corporate takedown.
Indeed. Nice game.
Yeah, so we're not going to even try we're not going to attempt to do analysis because we're just not going to even know what to say. But that was a fun game. I mean, you can see there's a lot of thinking about, which resources you invest in, a lot of black market powers used to sabotage different elements of their economy, whether it's disabling their high yield production structures, like the food, for example, or whether it's disabling their raw resource income with the underground nukes, mutinying, Offworld markets and so forth. You got to really think about which abilities to use. So there's a lot of decision making about not only how do you grow your economy, but also how do you stall your opponents.